Well, when I first went to Mobile, I went to aircraft mechanic school with the sole intention of going to work on the assembly line at Brooklyn Field. And then they moved me down to the test block, and that's probably why I'm wearing these earplugs today, is because I tested a whole lot of engines. Well, I worked on assembling the radial engines, and I ran what was called a lapping machine. You would take a cylinder, mount it just like it was mounted in the engine, only it was a frame, run it up and down to seat the rings on the cylinder. And then when the cylinder looked good, wrap it up and send it on down the line. And when it came off the end, it was a fully assembled engine. And then it would be sent down to test block. I believe I was sworn in on May the 28th, 1943. And believe it or not, I went right back down to engine test block as a sergeant, doing exactly the same thing, running the same engines that I'd been doing as a civilian. Never had any basic training, really. My brother, as a result of his National Guard time, I got interested in, he had taught me how to do it, about face and right shoulder, left shoulder, arms with a rifle. The first sergeant, this outfit that I was assigned to, realized that there were several of us that had been on the assembly line and gotten drafted. So he took about 4 or 5 of us and assigned a sergeant to us and sent us up on the ramp for a few days. And they put the finishing touches on our marching and sent us out to the rifle range, and I qualified on a 30-06. True, they were both 12-cylinder inline engines, but the Allison just did not compare to the Merlin Rolls-Royce. The British had been building it for several years, and it was in the Mustangs and the Hurricane planes. It was manufactured by the old Packard automobile that you used to see. The Packard was the only competitor for Cadillac in those days. It was a big car. Well, Packard closed up several of their plants and switched them over to building this Packard Rolls-Royce engine, which all the P-51s used. And then later, I think the Air Force used it in some of the other fighters too. The 2 depots, I served at both bases. I first went to Burtonwood, which is down at Liverpool, to do all the bombers, which had a radial engine and all the civilian type airplanes that were military at that time. And the inlines went up to Wharton, which is up at Blackpool, between Blackpool and Southport. We turned out over 3,000 engines that were rebuilt and tested and turned back over to the fighter squadrons. Well, some of them were not hurt at all, because the only thing that had happened to them, a pilot had been in a dogfight or had to operate with them full throttle. An engine designed for 3,000 RPM is full takeoff. And you use that only for takeoff, and then you pull the throttles back. A lot of these engines were just overboosted. Well, a supercharger fools the carburetor into thinking it's always at sea level, and it might be at 30 or 40,000 feet. But I later went to B-36 program as a flight engineer, and I was responsible for keeping 6 of those engines running. And we'd get them back in that had been strafed. When they came through this assembly line, they were like a brand new engine that had just been rebuilt. Let's see, I was drafted in May or June of 43. In September, I saw the Statue of Liberty go by. After we got out of the harbor of New York, you could count 14 ships. Most of them were Victor ships that had been built probably in Mobile here. And the ship I got on was the USS Monterey, a pleasure ship that was cruising out of one of the California ports. They'd converted it when they gave it to the Navy. I believe the passengers was limited to about 850. They marched us on board. In fact, they'd taken those ships, and every nook and cranny that they could stick a monk, they'd put bunks. I remember I took my bag, duffel bag, with all my belongings in it, and went down and they signed me to a little cubby hole and a bunk. And I wondered what that other bag was doing in it. Well, that guy slept in it one night, and I slept in it the next night. We must have had several thousand troops on a little pleasure ship. We spent 14 days at sea between New York and Liverpool. In the early part of the war, Liverpool was bombed, and several people were killed in Liverpool. But as the war progressed and the Americans got over there with the fighters and the bombers, the Germans quit raiding. So I felt blessed for being in northern England because I was protected. I've gone into the shelters many nights and slept on the floor inside these bomb shelters. But the whole streets and all the little towns would have in the middle of the street, they plowed it up and built a shelter. And it was a bomb shelter right down the middle of the street. And it was just a shelter. It looked like a pig pen, maybe, waist high. But you go in, under each end was open, and it just had rows of seats down each side.
Huh.
In these bomb shelters. And all the little towns in England were loaded with those bomb shelters. And the big ones too, for that matter. I had just made buck sergeant. I had been a corporal when we got over there, and I finally got one promotion in 2 years I was there. I just penned it on, and to show you how the man upstairs is looking out for individuals or people. I had made buck sergeant 1 month, and the very next month, the first sergeant came around one morning and says, "I want everybody below the rank of buck sergeant. Don't go to work this morning. You stay right here." And we came home that afternoon, everybody was gone. Those guys didn't go to work. They had sent them down to, this was when the Battle of the Bulge was going on, and they had taken everybody off our base with below the rank of sergeant. We carried a rifle, had one strapped to my bunk the whole time I was over there, but they gave new rifles and sent them over, and they got my bunkmate that I'd been bunking with for a couple of years and sent him over because he was still a PFC. So I missed that just by getting a stripe a month earlier. When the European War ended, June of 45, I had been over there for 23 months then. I spent 23 months in England, and I was down at Southampton. They had closed our assembly line down, cut orders on us to send us home for 30 days and redeployment to the Pacific. And I was sitting down in Southampton with my orders, bag packed. Mr. Truman, thank goodness, ordered the A-bomb to be dropped. When the A-bomb was dropped, that stopped all movement. Y-74 was the name of the strip right out of Berlin. We had Eisenhower's C-54, General Montgomery, the English general that never did like Eisenhower, really, because he thought he ought to have been the number one.
Yeah.
General Montgomery came in with an airplane and lost an engine. Had to be changed. And one of my crews, I had two crews, engine change crews, under my command, and I worked for the hangar chief, and we changed an engine in General Montgomery's airplane and got him back off, sent him back home. But they wrote an article about it and congratulated us for getting this airplane turned around in a hurry. I had been there 6 months. It looked like it was going to be another 6 months before I rotated because of my low points. And everybody was temporary during the wartime.
Yeah.
It was a temporary rank. We'll make you regular ranked would give you 30 days at home, won't count that leave against you. And I sat down and I figured it up. I said, well, if I go back by ship, it'll take a month to get me home. And I said, I'll spend a month at home, and that's 2, and a month getting back is 3. It's gonna be a year before I go home anyway. So I thought about it, and I went down and enlisted. And wouldn't you know, during that 18 months, I had taken my 30 days at home, got back up to Fort Mac in Atlanta, Fort McPherson. The Maritime Commission was on strike. That meant no ships were leaving the East Coast at all. And I sat there for a month. They said, we'll give you a stateside assignment if anybody were over 2 years overseas. And I had 30 months overseas. So I got a stateside assignment. Well, now they send me out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and put me on the B-29 ground crew. I worked on engines, but now I'm working on airplanes. We did it all. We took a Goody Bird, I don't know whether it collided or what happened, but messed the tail up on it. So they took the tail off of one that was damaged on a wing or someplace, put that whole tail section off one Goody Bird onto another one. And I remember reading the instructions on how to do it. And believe it or not, that was about my first flight in an airplane. And here I'd spent 2 or 3 years in the service, but I'd never flown in one.
Never flown one.
But I flew in this one because I helped them work on it. Instead of me getting out after the end of 15 months, I got a 3-year extension. At the end of that 3 years, I said, no way, I had over 10 years service in, total service. I still, from Germany is where I made tech. I got sent to Albuquerque and worked on the B-29. And then I was in the reserve unit that was working on B-10s, C-45s, and we had 2 Goody Birds. I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't like the way the squadron was organized and run. And they said, the only school I could go to was flight engineer school. Either in B-29s or B-36s were coming along, replacing all the B-29s. So I volunteered for that. And I went 6 months, I guess, to flight engineer school. At the end of the 6 months, based on your class standing, and I was pretty close to the top of the class, they needed 3 people to go to Carswell, which is at Fort Worth, Texas, in the B-36 program. That got me into SAC, and then I spent the rest of my career in SAC. As you know, they call them 6 turning and 4 burning. Meant you had 6 reciprocating engines running, 4 jets. But the B models, A's and B models, didn't have jets. They were just six reciprocating engines. And it had what we refer to as a corncob engine. If you can imagine it's a 7-cylinder engine, they took like 4 of them, put them together, and now you got 28 cylinders, all running off of one crankshaft. That's the B-36 engine on. And it was a B model that we were flying. And I went along as a 3rd flight engineer just to see what was going on. We took off from Fort Worth and lost an engine before we passed over El Paso, really. And we went on out to Arizona to the bombing range. And we dropping blue whistlers, 100-pound bombs, and we lost number 2 engine. And so the pilot said, well, we better take this thing back home. He's on 4 engines. And when you know, before we got back to El Paso, he lost the 3rd engine. So you got 2 engines running on one wing and 1 on the other one. And that's all you got. The pilot put this young guy that had just come back from Berlin airlift, and he says, Sandez was his last name. He says, Sandy, he says, you better land this thing. You've landed one since I have. He landed that airplane at El Paso. The runway hadn't been improved yet. It was still 150 foot wide and about 5,000 foot long. He set her down on the end of the runway with 3 engines. They flew us out, 13 of us on the crew. That was a full crew. The whole crew flew into Reno, Nevada, and the Plumas National Forest starts there and ends up in California. And they put you out as if you'd been shot down over Russia, put you out in Plumas National Forest, and you had to walk 85 miles across into California, and then assemble a strip over there where they rescued you. And I lost 14 pounds in 10 days. Now people talk about a diet. Well, all you got to do is just push it away, not eat. And that was not intentional. I was lucky some of them lost more than that. In fact, we were flying over Albuquerque once with another crew, and they had spotted something they didn't know what it was. And we didn't either. So they said we're see if we can chase him. So we went to above 50,000, and he was still going. So I don't know, it was a stray balloon or what it was. I never did know. It's 85 feet from the back of the front cockpit to the front of the rear cockpit. And the only way you lay down on a little cart and pull yourself with rope from the front to the back at 85 feet. And to finish with you about the 51 flying, we were up there doing it 1 week, and the very next week, it wasn't in our squadron, but it was in our wing. A 51 flew into a B-36, and a friend of ours had just done his 4 hours on the panel and was headed to the 6 monks in the back. He went back to one of those 6 monks, and he said he was laying on the top bunk, and it just undone his chute, and hadn't pulled it off. He was still laying on top of his parachute, and that P-51 hit right in front of him, and the airplane just came apart. He put his chute on, he managed to hang on to it when they threw him out of that airplane, and put his chute on and walked away.
Wow.
And the sad part about it was it had a double bombing team on it. For a bombardier to get credit, he had to make so many bomb runs. That particular airplane that didn't make it had a double bomb team, so it messed up 2 select crews is what it did. It killed all of them but 1 or 2, and that was the ones that happened to get thrown out of the airplane.
Wow.
And that was how close I came to being the airplane that had the P-51 flying to it. When they featherweighted them to fly over Russia at 50,000 feet and drop your bomb, the Russians had some fighters that could shoot you down at 50,000 feet. So now they've changed us to what they call a low-level pop-up. Our tactics were we would go in over from the North Pole, because these were the days before air refuelers and tankers were,
right.
They weren't around. So when you flew your optimum altitude all over past England, and when you got close enough that the Russian radar could pick you up, you dropped down and went out on the deck. So you'd go all the way in to your target area, you'd fly in at 500 feet, you'd pop up, and while it's going up, the radar man's got to drop his bomb, and he pitches the bomb out in front of you.
Right.
And the airplane does a 180. You'll be further distance from it, safer, but doing a 180 going back on the same track course you came in on. Sandy and I was with this same crew at Carswell for 2 years, and we went from a non-ready crew to a select crew. And select means they've been selected as one of the lead crews, and they everybody gets a spot promotion. Whatever rank you got today, you'll be 1 higher tomorrow. There were some ground rules in that too. I flew and never got a spot promotion because I was a master sergeant, and I got a direct commission, and they didn't think second lieutenants ought to have spot promotions. That's right. So they wouldn't give me one. So I ended up retiring after 20 years as a captain, I should have had a chance to make major, but I didn't. But I didn't worry about that then, and I still don't worry about it.